embodying humility, willingness to learn, and agility. My next guest on Duologues is steering one of India's big four professional services network to success. Leading with the mantra of co-creation, he firmly believes in India's talent, its capability to innovate, and the potential of manufacturing to turn us into a developed economy. Please join me in welcoming Yezdi Nagporewalla, CEO of KPMG in India, to this episode of Duologues. Yezdi, it's a pleasure to be here at KPMG's corporate office in Mumbai, and in specific to this innovation center which you have recently created. We'll talk about it, but thank you for agreeing to do this episode of Duologues with me. I'm sure the conversation is going to be insightful and inspiring for a lot of people. To begin with, let me ask you a question to share with us the background of KPMG's presence globally and in specific in the country and the practices which it essentially takes care of.
Well, Manish, thank you for taking time out, visiting our office, especially our innovation center. Coming to KPMG, we are classified as a big four.
Absolutely.
And in India, we are now 30 years old. In fact, we just celebrated 30 years.
Wow.
So this year is our 30th year. Across 130 countries and more than 450,000 people, of which more than 45,000 are in India.
It's almost more than 10%.
Practically 10%.
Wow.
And we are the largest in India from a talent perspective. And in India, we started off 30 years ago in 1984. Today, we are a full-fledged accounting and advisory firm.
And any reflections on the services, like what is the proportion of different services on a very broader level?
So the proportion changes with what's the demand as such.
Right.
Today, our focus is advisory and tax.
Right.
And advisory, of course, is the larger component in that. And our government practice also sits within advisory. Our deal advisory also sits there.
Right.
And of course, our entire business consulting and digital and technology, all of those practices are all under advisory.
Right. Things are changing in our country, and as you rightly mentioned, that one of the reasons of KPMG's entry into the country would be the multinational clients expecting that level and that quality of service in the country to happen. And since then, I'm sure the necessity of compliance and getting consulted to be able to be sustainable and areas like that would have expanded this necessity to other organizations, including the small and medium enterprises in the country also. Are you witnessing that kind of a change in the mindset of the homegrown companies in the country, in specific the small and medium enterprises, to be able to enjoy the level and the quality of services which you provide?
So it is growing, and the SME, actually more than the SME, it's also the promoter.
Right.
Demand, if you like, that is growing in India. And they are equally demanding as any other global client, and sometimes more demanding in terms of what we have to deliver.
What is the fundamental reason of this demand? The quest to make themselves more competitive? Would that fuel this particular nature of the promoters to be more demanding?
So the quest, yes, but at the same time, globalization has taken its impact on India and Indian industry.
Right.
Our own economy, the way it is heading, within another 20 years or so, we'll probably be a developed economy.
Absolutely.
And everyone's racing towards that.
Right. So everybody wants to be a part and make their own contribution in this whole story, which is in making.
Absolutely.
Right.
And we find they have an equal importance and priority on aspects of governance also.
Right.
There are so many family-run organizations who get up and want to now globalize. They want to, and when I say globalize, I don't mean getting into a foreign territory. When I say globalize, I mean operations of global standards.
Right, right. You spoke about the fact that 10 to 12% of the global talent is here in the country. And let's talk about that. How do you build these capabilities to be, one, globally competitive, two, what kind of culture differentiates KPMG, say, from the rest? And in the current times when digital, we'll talk about that also, is kind of disrupting and of course throwing a lot of opportunities, there is a necessity for reskilling and upskilling people. So give us a sense, some of the reflections about the talent and the people policies here at KPMG.
So one thing's for sure, that India is the talent hub for the rest of the world.
Right.
So whether you like it or not, that is now turning into our advantage.
Right.
As such.
True.
And it's our obligation and duty to nurture that.
Right.
And to bring it to an edge, if you like. And that's where aspects of reskilling or upskilling come in. That's where aspects of agility come in. And later on, when we talk about digital and AI, to have an agile workforce is as important as AI itself.
Right.
So those pieces come in, they go hand in hand.
Right.
As such.
Right.
At KPMG, our differentiator is we care for our people. And if someone asks me and our clients see it, our ecosystem sees it, every touch point that we have witnesses it, that we are different because we care for our people. I'm not saying others don't, but what we went through, for example, during COVID, and I can give you numerous examples of what all we did.
Of course.
That's an indication and a witness of the fact that we care for our people. Some of our policies, our schemes that we are coming out with, they are all indicative and they're oriented around people. For us, if you have a good workforce, you have the quality that you want.
Yeah. We spoke about digital. How do you see, the necessity for firms and organizations and individuals to embrace digital, I think, is the need of the hour. How are you embracing digital as an organization into your products and processes?
So we do have a strategy and a roadmap.
Right.
You would expect it of us.
Of course.
We advise our clients about it. And this is away from the elements of data and continuity, which we always had. And this strategy and roadmap actually now is on the threshold of aspects of AI and tools. It's more of change management which goes along with it.
Right.
And it also ends more on the aspects of data as a service. So you play with data that much more intricately.
Right.
Which will unfold perhaps in a year or two.
Right. Right.
All elements of dashboarding, zeroing in to where you want. All of those are, in fact, yesterday I was at a client's place and that client had a dashboard where you could drill down to the efficiency of an individual crane.
Wow.
Of a construction company.
Right.
So we've taken instances like that and brought our own product in.
Right. And in this whole process, the necessity for people, including people like us, to upskill ourselves, to be able to embrace the benefits which come out of such digital interventions. How do you do that for yourself? I'm sure such dashboards would have started to come to you also for variety of perspective and aspects of your own business. So how do you upgrade yourselves to be ready for this digital convergence which is happening? We all know that country is at the cusp of a potential explosion in terms of growth, demand, and hence supply. And variety of perspectives, variety of sectors, industries will continue to grow towards next long term. What are your perspectives on the current environment which our country from an economic perspective is looking at?
Just as our Prime Minister says, we are now moving into the Amrit Kaal phase.
Right.
And I also believe we are moving into that phase. It's a question of time, it's a question of pace. But I personally feel we'll probably achieve some of these pieces earlier than budgeted. And we probably will be a developed nation and economy in maybe around 15 or 20 years.
Right.
And it's already moving there. The sentiment is moving there.
Right.
And the key aspect which people are now beginning to appreciate is the level of confidence that we have.
Right.
And you can see that every time you travel overseas, where everyone internationally is looking at India with either in jealousy or in awe.
Right.
But you guys really have it going.
Yeah. Mostly in awe.
It's in awe.
That is right.
Some guys are cynical because this story is now 20 years old.
Right.
But now we are seeing it take shape.
Right.
And aspects like political stability add to it.
Mm-hmm.
Aspects like public expenditure
Right.
add to it. And we still have to see the peak of private expenditure. And once that comes in, that's when the momentum will really, really kick in.
Right. So if you look back, say the decade gone by, you know, from my perspective, say when it comes to manufacturing, and we'll talk about other sectors also. I come from electronics. A structured approach. When you look back, at least you can feel there has been a structured approach. There came phased manufacturing programs in the first instance, capex incentives, followed by production-linked incentives. So it appears that there was a structured approach over the last 10 years to enable, say, assembly in the first instance, backward integration in the second, and make ourselves globally competitive on exports, finally, which might be our goal as a country, as an industry. How do you look at the approach which has happened in last 10 years in specific? And you spoke about a potential witness of the peak of private investment. What will unlock that potential which the country sits on?
I would expect political stability
Sure.
to continue.
Right, of course.
If that continues, public spending is already happening.
Right.
Consumerism is already taking shape, and expenditure on consumers is already taking shape.
Right.
Expenses in rural areas is also taking shape.
Right.
So the foundation which invites and attracts investments is already there. And recently I was at the Vibrant Gujarat. It's like any other international
platform.
summit.
Absolutely.
It was an international
Yes,
summit in
indeed.
terms of the representation, etc. And on the back of that, and we were the knowledge partners of Vibrant Gujarat.
Right. Sure.
On the back of that, we already have a neighboring country approaching us, checking, can you do it for us, kind of thing. So that is the element of awe which you are talking about. Yeah.
Right.
And that's how we are getting things into place.
And some reflections on the sectors. Like electronics, the industry has taken an ambitious target of $300 billion by 26-27 and $425 billion by 2030, which I believe is much doable. And we are already unlocking the critical aspects of enabling backward integration, because when the semiconductor starts to happen in the country, when devices start to happen in the country, we unlock that huge potential.
Yeah.
Some of the reflections, and I know that you have worked very closely with automotive sector and several other sectors. Any reflections on sectors which will continue to drive this growth which you just spoke of?
So one is, of course, the infrastructure and everything around it. That is going to continue for the next 10 years to come. And it's required, so to speak. Manufacturing also has a focus from the current government. And past instances or situations which have forced us to think of how dependent we are
Right.
on some aspects.
Right.
And those are the instances where we came up with the Atmanirbhar Bharat kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And we came up saying, okay, we need a semiconductor
Right.
manufactured here. Not just manufactured, but also designed in a manner. So the dependency is not international.
True.
So you don't want something manufactured and the
Yes.
technology sitting somewhere else.
Right.
So those are the aspects which have taught us as a nation that we need to be dependent, we have to stand on our own feet, and that's where manufacturing has taken a different shape.
Right.
Earlier it was services, it will always be services.
Right.
Our advantage is our talent and our force. But now you will find infrastructure and manufacturing.
Is KPMG as an organization also looking at exporting services? I mean, are you already exporting some services from here?
So 22,000 of our people which are sitting in a different organization called KGS
Okay.
are actually catering to the network.
Which is KPMG Global Services,
That's
like
right.
KGS is that.
That's right.
Right.
And they are catering to the global network.
And what was the thought of bringing this innovation center up? I mean, it's a pleasure to witness what you are doing here, because what you're trying to do here and also support some of the startups in this whole process and of course the clients. Give us a sense of why this idea came up and what is that which you're trying to do here?
So let me first tell you that this is a trial.
Okay.
Our real innovation center is supposed to come up in Bangalore.
Okay.
Which will be 3 times
Wow.
as complex and 3 times as flashy, if you like.
Right.
The driver is the fact that we always collaborate, whether it's agencies, whether it's vendors, whether it's clients. And we believe in co-creating. And that's the philosophy of this innovation center, where we've put in all our experience, our use cases, and we are encouraging clients and other stakeholders to come in and co-create.
So it would be mostly like accountants, chartered accountants who would look at career into KPMG. Can I say that now engineers also might find some space within KPMG for this purpose?
Since the last few years.
Or is it happening? Okay.
Yeah. We've got engineers. You'll be surprised, we also have doctors in our healthcare practice, which works with the government.
Wow. Wonderful.
So it's a very, very different environment we are in.
Yeah. And I believe that the necessity for organizations like yours to be able to support organizations for their understanding on compliances has always existed, but now I think ESG is a huge topic. And within ESG, if not mandated yet, but I'm sure many mandates would follow in the years to come for organizations to be able to comply. Any reflections on ESG and how Indian companies are looking at embracing ESG for the purpose which cuts across beyond being compliant for certain requirements?
So you could say ESG is at its initial stages. The depth and complexity of ESG has yet to come.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It is unfolding, and I had expected to unfold at a much faster pace now onwards as regulations move ahead.
Right.
And let me tell you, our regulations in India, people like SEBI, for agencies like SEBI, they are at par or ahead of the European legislation.
Right.
And Europe is ahead in the rest of the world as such. And they are already mandating for a certain class of companies certain disclosures. And life starts with disclosures in this space, where you put something out and then you subscribe to it. So you believe in it. It's a philosophy.
Right.
Within KPMG, we have an impact plan ourselves, which we put out, and we've made certain claims there, which we will adhere to. We aren't mandated, but we are doing it as well.
When you look at these impact plans, I mean, it is important for organizations to understand the impact, which in some sense should far exceed the burden which comes on organizations. Otherwise, the mindset can be such that it is in some sense disturbing and disrupting the ease of doing business. More number of compliances or disclosures to be made in some sense require bandwidth and resources to be allocated. So what are your reflections, the trade-off, the benefit, the impact which such processes and practices which lead to an organization being, say, ESG compliant, the benefit far exceeds the resources which are allocated to fulfill these requirements. Any reflections on that?
So my advice there with clients as well is you have to look at this as medium term. You can't see it as short term.
Right.
If you see it as short term, then you'll find that imbalance. You look at it in medium term and you see that the benefits will far exceed the cost of compliance.
Right. In specific, I believe when it comes to E, and to a larger extent S also, I think there'll be significant benefits coming in soon. And when it comes to governance, I think there is a reasonable understanding and awareness. Is my understanding correct on that?
So governance, yes. Governance we have embraced to a larger extent.
Right.
The social aspect, in fact, the E is much more spoken about.
The benefits are tangible, so I believe that would be the reason.
It's I would say a little more measurable as such. But the social aspects also will eventually catch up.
Right. Yezdi, moving on to your personal aspects of your life, I mean, it's been a couple of decades you've been part of KPMG. How did this happen? I mean, what made you choose, or what made KPMG choose you, and how did this happen?
So I am a qualified chartered accountant, and I did my articles in another company, a company called SB, which eventually has merged into Deloitte.
Right.
I spent 11 years there, and it's only by destiny that I landed up here. Of course, KPMG was attractive. It was a big four, and it had just entered India a few years ago. But I would attribute that to destiny.
Destiny. You believe in destiny? Exactly was the case. How did this happen? Somebody approached you, or what happened?
So, actually, it's a long story.
That's okay.
I am super attached to the partners of Bilimoria and SB Bilimoria and things like that. And I was wooed also. We had a joint client where KPMG was doing the US gap.
Right.
And SBB was doing the Indian gap, and I was the senior manager there.
Right.
And in that process, I got transited.
And the journey would have been full of opportunities and challenges, as is the case with life itself. Any challenge coming to your mind, you could overcome it and in some sense convert that challenge into an opportunity which can be like inspiring for people who would be charting similar path as you would have done?
So not a challenge, but you could say an opportunity, if you like. So the role that I was playing before this, I was the lead partner for the Tata account.
Right.
And that account and the people in it have frankly taught me a lot on the values front,
right,
on the perseverance front, but also sheer values of interacting and respecting.
Right.
And it's not easy. They are equally demanding in their own ways.
Yes.
So to grow that account from practically zero, I was a manager on that account as such. So that may not be a challenge, but it could be an achievement.
Yeah. That was a milestone in itself in your professional journey.
Yeah.
Right. And where did you grow up? Like, what was your childhood like, and what were you wanting to become when you were growing up? Was this image in your mind that you want to become an accountant, say, in the first instance?
So I've always been a Bombay Parsi boy, if you like.
Right.
Staying at Cuff Parade. So all my memories are all that side of town, including my schooling, my college. After that, went to Sydenham College. Then I wanted to do my chartered accountancy in UK.
So your own me time, so to say, has got compromised in this whole process comparative to what it used to be?
To be honest, yes.
So how do you manage your energies then in that case? Because unwinding is also equally important as much as subjecting yourselves to the work which you do. So how do you unwind yourself?
So I am fortunate. We have a son. We have a 10-year-old son. And I say fortunate because at this stage, normally in life, the kids are grown up.
Yeah.
But I have a 10-year-old son. And you know the benefits and the virtues of a 10-year-old.
Of course.
And he definitely can refresh me or recharge my batteries.
Wonderful.
So whatever time I get, I spend with my family. And I think that's good enough, whether you're traveling together or driving somewhere. It just unwinds you much faster.
Right. World is changing fast. Anything coming to your mind you wish to change for yourselves in next 2 to 3 years of time, which you would like to pick up very consciously, that this is something in you which you would like to change?
So for me, one of the stated objectives is to leave KPMG in a better place when I leave this role.
Better means what? Like magnitude or the momentum or the practices?
It's all so it's.
And you're moving the needle? It's been about a year since you took over this.
It's actually 2 years. In February, sometime now will be 2 years.
So that's your midterm quest?
So my first term is of course 5 years, but that is the stated objective.
Right.
That I will leave this place in a better.
Wonderful. More power to you. And I know that you're in a good place. And I've been personally, working very closely with some of your partners over last couple of decades gone by. And I must compliment the sincerity, the kind of credibility which people at KPMG reflect. And it requires a professional approach to be able to not mix personal network into the business. And that is the hallmark of what I've experienced. I must compliment the kind of culture which you have fostered into KPMG over a couple of decades of its presence in the country. And I'm sure you will continue to make this place better than from where you took a year before. This is my last question to you, Yezdi. and this is potentially my personal quest. What is that higher purpose, like, which wakes you up every morning? And I know that you want to make KPMG a better place, but at a personal level, looking forward towards your own life, what is that higher purpose which keeps you going?
So first of all, the higher purpose or that philosophy has to be medium term. You have to
Right.
look at medium term, and that's how I see it.
Yeah.
And for me, it's greater good. Whether it's clients in terms of how we make a positive difference to them, whether it's our people, how we make a positive difference in the way they look and feel as such and belong to this organization, whether it's our community of what we are doing for them or the planet itself. So ultimately, I'd put greater good.
Wonderful.
And all of this around it.
Wonderful. So all the best, Yezdi, to you and all here at KPMG, and it was a pleasure to be speaking to you. And thank you very much for this conversation. And as I said, more power to you to make this place better than from where you took. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Manish.